During the Cold War, the world lived under constant tension. Each military movement could trigger a global catastrophe. The United States, concerned about the growing ability of the Soviet Union to develop increasingly advanced radar systems, knew they needed something revolutionary. It was not just a matter of technological superiority, but of strategic survival. Thus was born the need to create an aircraft capable of penetrating enemy defenses without being seen, reaching crucial targets in hostile territory and, if necessary, launching decisive nuclear attacks. This challenge gave rise to one of the most secret and ambitious projects in the history of military aviation, the ATB Advanced Technology Bomber Program. ATB was not just another aircraft development program. It represented a complete change in the way the United States stared at air combat. The idea was to create a strategic bomber that was practically invisible in the eyes of enemies, even in the face of the most advanced radars of the time. And it was from this almost impossible mission that B-2 Spirit was born. B-2 seemed nothing to what the world was used to in heaven. Its futuristic, tail format with soft lines and a flying wing-shaped structure was carefully designed to minimize any kind of radar reflection. Each curve, each material used, every detail in its construction had one goal: not to be detected. Stealth technology was the heart of the whole project. For many, at the time, the concept of invisible plane sounded like something out of science fiction films. But for Northrop Grumman engineers, a development company, it was an obsession. They needed to make B-2 undetectable to enemy defense systems. And for that, it was not enough just to move in the format. It was necessary to reinvent the building materials. The B-2 structure was made with extremely light and resistant carbon compound materials. But the secret was not just in lightness. These materials had the ability to absorb radar waves, dramatically reducing the signal return that the radars captured. In addition, the aircraft received special coatings, with layers of materials that dispersed and absorbed different radar frequencies. Even the engine's exits are designed to minimize thermal signature, making it difficult to detect infrared sensors. Another impressive detail was the care of the heat generated by the turbines. Normally, heat output from an aircraft is one of the main points used for its detection. In the case of B-2, exhaust outputs were positioned at the top of the aircraft, mixing the hot air with the cold air of the atmosphere before it could be traced. But it wasn't just the carcass that impressed. Inside, B-2 was a true flying control center. Equipped with the APQ-181 radar, developed especially to be low interception, the bomber was able to map the ground, identify threats, and trace escape routes, all with the minimum emission of signals that could be detected by enemies. In addition, the B-2 had an extremely accurate GPS integrated navigation system that allowed you to perform missions within miles away with a margin of error of only a few meters. The aircraft also had an intelligent defensive system, capable of changing real-time routes and tactics to avoid threats detected during the mission. All this technological arsenal allowed B-2 to perform impossible missions for other bombers of the time. He could fly up to 11,000 kilometers without replenishment, reaching altitudes greater than 50,000 feet. This means that he could take off from the United States, cross integer oceans, penetrate enemy airspace, perform the attack and return home, all without being seen. What about firepower? B-2 Spirit did not disappoint. With capacity to carry up to 23 tons of ammunition, he could carry from nuclear weapons to penetration bombs such as the powerful GBU-57. This combination of range, invisibility, and destructive power made B-2 a virtually unbeatable weapon. But of course, all this technology was priceless. And what price? The cost of each unit reached an impressive $800 million. And that was not all. The operating cost was also very high, reaching about $135,000 per hour of flight, not to mention the highly specialized maintenance each aircraft required. At first, the plan was ambitious. The United States planned to manufacture 132 units. But with the end of the Cold War and the defense budget cuts, this number was drastically reduced to only 21 units produced. Even so, the B-2 Spirit has consolidated itself as an absolute symbol of the American air power. His ability to attack without being detected, his flight autonomy, and his power of destruction have made him a key piece of U.S. military strategy for the next decades. If the development of the B-2 Spirit already looked like a technological feat, the real missions showed the world how, in fact, a piece of lethal chess in the hands of U.S. military strategists. The first time the B-2 was placed to the Royal Combat was during the Kosovo War in 1999. At that time, Serbia had a dense and well-prepared air defense system. Even so, B-2 has managed to perform surgical bombing in strategic positions without any detection by enemy radars. Military analysts were impressed. The bombers took off directly from the Whiteman Air Base in Missouri, crossed the Atlantic, attacked the targets in the middle of Europe, and returned home. A mission of almost 30 hours long, no intermediate landing. During this conflict, B-2 accounted for only 1% of NATO's air missions. But impressively, they reached about 33% of strategic targets. This made clear the impact that a small number of highly technological aircraft could have on a conflict. The next big test came with the War of Afghanistan in 2001, shortly after the September 11th attacks. Again, the B-2 departed from the United States, flew over the Pacific, received refueling in the middle of the flight, and attacked Taliban positions with surgical precision. Most surprisingly, some of these missions lasted more than 40 hours of uninterrupted flight. It was a true air marathon, demanding the most of the pilots, who took turns to rest during the mission. In 2003, during the invasion of Iraq, the B-2 Spirit was once again one of the main stars of the air offensive. It was used to perform the first attacks of the so-called Operation Shock and Paver, a strategy based on an extreme and immediate demonstration of strength, with the aim of destabilizing the enemy in the early hours of conflict. Once again, the combination of stealth, range, and accuracy of the B-2 made all the difference. But on the one hand, combat performance impressed. On the other, the maintenance of this aircraft has always been a big challenge. Unlike other bombers, B-2 requires highly controlled conditions for their conservation. For example, its stealth coverage, that special coating that absorbs radar waves, is extremely sensitive to moisture and temperature variations. This means that B-2 need to be stored in air-conditioned hangars with strict temperature and moisture control. Each routine maintenance can take weeks and involves hundreds of specialized technicians. Just to apply or repair the stealth coating, engineers need to use specific protective equipment, as the materials used are toxic if inhaled. In addition, any small fuselage malfunction can compromise all the aircraft's stealth. And the cost of keeping B-2 operational? As we mentioned, the flight time goes beyond $135,000. But besides, the annual cost of maintaining the entire fleet is astronomical, overcoming billions of dollars. Therefore, even with a reduced fleet, the budget to keep these active bombers is almost as large as some whole air forces around the world. This combination of complexity and high cost has made B-2 an extremely valuable but also otherwise vulnerable aircraft. The limited amount of available units means that each B-2 is virtually irreplaceable. Therefore, the U.S. Air Force adopts very rigid security protocols for each mission, trying to avoid any risk of loss. Even so, a serious incident happened in 2008 when a B-2 fell shortly after takeoff in Guam, Pacific. Fortunately, the two riders managed to eject safely. This was the first and only registered loss of a B-2 to this day. The investigation pointed out failure in sensors that caused incorrect readings and made the aircraft lose support during takeoff. After this accident, all other units underwent strict revisions and updates to avoid similar problems in the future. After all, losing any B-2 unit is a gigantic strategic damage. In addition to combat missions, the B-2 was also used as a strategic dissuasion tool. On several occasions, the United States has made demonstration flights, flying over Allied territories or near-tension regions as a way of showing the world that, even over the years, the power of B-2 was relevant. And with the advancement of technologies, the B-2 has undergone several modernizations over the decades. New navigation systems and APQ-181 radar updates, mission control software, and integration of new guided ammunition improvements have made B-2 even more lethal. Even with the arrival of new threats, such as the most modern air defense systems and multiple band radars, B-2 continued to fulfill its role with excellence. But, like all technology, the time of service of any aircraft has a cycle. With the advancement of air defense technologies and the constant evolution of enemy radar systems, the United States knew they could not only count on B-2 Spirit forever. Although the invisible bomber was still feared and respected, it was necessary to think about the future. Thus was born the B-21 Raider project, a new generation bomber that promises to take the stealth war at a completely new level. But before talking about the future, it is important to understand the legacy that B-2 Spirit leaves behind. For more than 3 decades of operation, the B-2 represented the apex of American aerospace engineering. Not just for his unusual format, but for the way he changed the rules of the game. Until his arrival, the concept of bombarding strategic targets without being detected seemed almost impossible. Interior bombers always depended on fighter escorts, electronic war support, and low-altitude flight tactics to try to fool the radars. B-2 was the first to break with this logic. Thanks to their ability to penetrate enemy defenses without support, B-2 brought a new operational philosophy to the U.S. Armed Forces. He could enter hostile territory, attack surgically accurately, and leave without the enemy even noticing his presence until it was too late. This created a huge psychological and strategic advantage. Many opponents began to fear not only U.S. attacks, but the possibility of being attacked anywhere, from anywhere, by an invisible enemy. The emergence of B-21 Raider, therefore, does not mean the end of B-2, but a natural evolution. B-21 brings lessons learned with decades of operational experience with Spirit. It will be smaller, more efficient, and with lower operating costs. Its maintenance will be simpler, thanks to the use of new materials and stealth coating technologies more resistant to weather conditions. In addition, the B-21 promises an even greater ability to adapt to different types of mission, from conventional attacks to strategic nuclear operations. But even with this ongoing transition, the B-2 Spirit will still remain in service for many years. The U.S. Air Force plan is to keep B-2 operational until at least 2032, while the B-21 is gradually integrated into the fleet. During this period of coexistence, we are very likely to see joint missions between the old Spirit and the new Raider. Another important point is that B-2 still undergoes constant updates. The communication system has been modernized, navigation and mission software has been improved, and integration with modern weapons, such as GPS direct attack bombs, JDAM, maintains competitive spirit even in the face of modern threats. B-2 has also gained the ability to launch the GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator, one of the largest conventional bombs of the American arsenal, capable of destroying strongly protected underground bunkers. This kind of capacity makes B-2 an indispensable weapon for situations where precision and destruction power are crucial. In the current geopolitical scenario, the B-2 remains a key tool for the United States' de-detergent strategy. Its simple displacement to bases near international voltage zones already serves as a clear warning that the U.S. has the means to perform long-range attacks with precision and lethality, without giving the enemy any chance of early response. Today, when it comes to invisible air power, the B-2 Spirit is undoubtedly the great icon. It symbolizes decades of research, billions of dollars in investments, and, above all, a military philosophy that prioritizes attack first, precisely, and invisible. The name Spirit, which means spirit, has never been so suitable. B-2 is the ghost that flies in the shadows, crossing the skies without a trail, ready to reach its target without being seen. And even if the B-21 Raider is on its way, the B-2 Spirit has already secured its definitive place in the history of military aviation. A plane that forever changed the concept of air war, showing that often what the enemy does not see is what else should fear.